The morning sky over the Korean mountains was clear and blue when Lieutenant Juan Park started his patrol flight. He had been flying these routes for 3 years now, and the view never got old. The tall peaks stretched out below him like sleeping giants covered in green forests. His fighter jet moved smoothly through the air, cutting through white clouds that hung low over the valleys. G1 checked his instruments for the 10th time that morning. Everything looked normal. Fuel was good, engines running perfectly, and his communication system was working fine. This was supposed to be a quiet patrol, just like all the others. He would fly the standard route, check for any problems, and return to base by noon. But today would be different. At exactly 10:47 in the morning, his radar picked up something strange. A fast-moving object was coming down from space, way 2. Fast to be controlled, Giwan frowned and adjusted his scanner. The object was definitely not human-made. It was too smooth, too strange in shape, and it was falling toward the mountains like a burning rock. "Control tower, this is Blue 7, Giwan spoke into his radio. "I have an unknown object on my scanner. It looks like it's going to crash in Sector 12. The voice that came back through his headset was calm and professional. "Blue 7, we see it too. You are ordered to observe from a safe distance and report. Do not approach. Wait for the recovery team." Guan watched as the strange craft fell toward the earth. It was silver and shaped like a teardrop, completely unlike any human spaceship he had ever seen. Smoke and fire trailed behind it as it hit the atmosphere. The pilot in him could tell that whoever was flying that thing was fighting hard to control it. The craft disappeared behind a tall mountain peak. And a few seconds later, Juan saw a flash of light, followed by a thick column of black smoke rising into the sky. Something inside his chest tightened. If there was someone alive in that crash, they would not stay alive for long without help. "Control tower, the object has crashed. I can see smoke. Should I investigate? Negative Blue 7? Return to your patrol route. The recovery team will handle this." Guan looked at the smoke rising from behind the mountain. The recovery team was at least 2 hours away, maybe more. Crash site was in rough terrain that would be hard to reach with ground vehicles. Someone was hurt and bleeding too. Hours might be too long. He had always been taught to follow orders. In the military, following orders kept everyone safe. But he had also been taught something else, something his grandmother had told him when he was a child. She had said that when someone needs help, you help them, no matter who they are or where they come from. "Control tower, I'm going to take a closer look. Blue 7, you are ordered to return to patrol. Do not approach the crash site." Guan turned off his radio. He banked his fighter jet toward the mountain and pushed the throttle forward. The engine roared as he climbed over the peak and looked down into the valley on the other side. There, at the bottom of a rocky slope, he could see the crashed ship. It was bigger than he had thought, about the size of a small house, and it was definitely not from Earth. The silver hull was cracked open like an egg, and bright orange flames were starting to spread across the wreckage. If anyone was inside, they needed to get out right now. Giwan circled the area looking for a place. To land, the valley floor was covered with sharp rocks and fallen trees. But there was a small flat area about half a mile from the crash. It would have to do. He brought his jet down carefully, using all his skill to avoid the obstacles. The landing gear touched down hard on the rough ground, and the aircraft bounced twice before coming to a stop. Juan shut off the engine and grabbed his emergency kit from behind his seat. The run to the crash site took him 10 minutes over difficult terrain. As he got closer, he could hear the metal of the ship creaking and groaning in the heat. The flames were getting bigger, and he could smell something strange in the air, like flowers mixed with electricity. G1 reached the broken hull and looked inside. The interior was dark and filled with smoke, but he could see that it was definitely designed for living beings. There were what looked like seats, control panels with strange symbols, screens that flickered with alien writing, and then he saw her. She was lying near what might have been the pilot's seat, not moving. She was clearly not human, but she was definitely alive. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to glow faintly like moonlight on water. She was smaller than a human woman, with delicate features and long silver hair. Strange wing-like structures extended from her back, but one of them was bent at an angle that looked very painful. Her chest was rising and falling slowly. She was breathing, but barely. G1 did not hesitate. He climbed into the wreckage and carefully lifted the alien girl in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, and her skin felt warm despite its strange color, as he carried her away from the burning ship. He could feel a strange tingling sensation where his hands touched her, like a very gentle electric current. He had just reached what he thought was a safe distance when the ship's power core exploded. The blast knocked him forward, and he twisted his body to shield the alien girl from the flying debris. Hot metal fragments whistled past his head, and the shock wave left his ears ringing. When the noise died down, Jiwan looked back at where the ship had been. There was nothing left but a smoking crater and scattered pieces of silver metal. Whatever secrets that ship might have held were gone forever. The girl in his arms stirred slightly and made a soft sound that might have been words in her own language. Her eyes opened for just a moment, and Jiwan found himself looking into pupils that were large and dark, surrounded by irises that shifted color like oil on water. She looked at him with what seemed like confusion and fear before her eyes closed. Again, G1 knew he had to make a choice. He could call for help and turn the alien girl over to the military scientists. They would study her, ask her questions, and probably keep her locked up for months or years, or he could take care of her himself, at least until she was strong enough to make her own decisions. He thought about his grandmother's words again. When someone needs help, you help them. Guan adjusted his grip on the unconscious alien and started walking toward his fighter jet. There was an old research station about 20 miles north, abandoned for years, but still equipped with basic medical supplies. It would be a good place to hide while she recovered. As he walked, he wondered what he was getting himself into. But looking down at her peaceful face, he knew he had made the right choice. The rescue was just the beginning. 3 days had passed since Guan carried the alien girl to the old research station. The building was hidden deep in the mountains, far from any roads or hiking trails. It had been used by scientists many years ago to study the local wildlife, but now it was empty and forgotten. It's perfect for hiding someone who was not supposed to exist. Juan had done his best to make the place comfortable. He cleaned out one of the small rooms and brought in blankets and pillows from his apartment. He set up a portable heater because the alien girl's skin always felt cold to the touch. Her breathing was steady but shallow, and that strange glow under her skin had grown dimmer each day. He was worried about her. Very worried. The girl had not opened her eyes since that first moment after the crash. Juan had tried everything he could think of to help her heal. He washed her cuts with clean water and covered them with bandages. Tried to give her water by letting small drops fall between her lips. But he had no idea what her people ate or what medicines might help her. On the morning of the 4th day, everything changed. Ji-won was sitting beside her bed, reading from a medical book he had borrowed from the library. He was trying to learn about treating injuries when he did not know what kind of body he was dealing with. The book was not very helpful, but it was better than doing nothing. A soft sound made him look up. The alien girl was moving. Her eyes were open, and she was looking around the room with obvious fear. When she saw Ji-won, she tried to push herself away from him, but her injured wing caught on the blankets, and she cried out in pain. "Hey, it's okay," Guan said softly, holding up his hands to show he was not dangerous. "I'm not going to hurt you. You're safe here." The girl stared at him with those strange color-changing eyes. She said something in her own language, and her voice was like music, but Juan could hear the fear in it. She tried to sit up, but her body was still too weak. "You were in a crash," Guan explained, speaking slowly and clearly. "Your ship was destroyed. I pulled you out before it exploded. You've been unconscious for 3 days. She tilted her head slightly, and Juan realized she probably could not understand him. He pointed to himself and said, "Juan?" Then he pointed to her and raised his eyebrows in a question. The girl watched him carefully for a long moment. Then she touched her own chest and said something that sounded like Nari. Her voice was weak, but the word was clear. "Nari," Juan repeated, and she nodded. "Nice to meet you, Nari. I wish it was under better circumstances.
Oh,
Juan learned that Nari was much more intelligent than he had expected. Even though they could not speak the same language, she was quick to understand what he was trying to communicate. When he brought her water, she drank it gratefully. When he showed her different foods, she was able to make him understand which ones she could eat and which ones might make her sick. The biggest problem was her injured wing. The wing-like structures on her back were not just for decoration. Quan could see that they were connected to her breathing somehow. When the injured wing moved the wrong way, Nari would gasp and her skin would lose some of its glow. That wing to heal properly, or she might not survive. But Jiwan was not a doctor, and he certainly was not an alien doctor. All he had was his determination and his willingness to try anything that might help. He spent the rest of that day watching how Nari moved and breathed. He noticed that she was most comfortable when the damaged wing was held in a certain position. So he used materials from his emergency kit to build a support that would keep the wing still while it healed Nar. I was amazed by his patience. She had expected humans to be rough and violent. Her people had heard stories about the humans who traveled between the stars, stories that made them sound like dangerous animals who solved every problem by fighting. But this human was gentle and careful. He worked on her wing support for hours, adjusting it again and again until it felt right. When Juan finally finished, Nari was able to breathe more easily. The pain in her back faded to a dull ache, and some of the glow returned to her skin. She looked at Juan with something that might have been gratitude, and she said something in her musical language. "I wish I knew what you were saying," Jiwan said, "but I'm glad you're feeling better." That evening, Jiwan sat beside Nari's bed and tried to teach her some basic words in Korean and English. He pointed to objects around the room and said there. Names, water, food, light, help, safe. Nari repeated the words carefully, and her musical voice made even the simplest words sound beautiful. In return, Nari tried to teach him words in her language. She pointed to the light and said something that sounded like singing. She pointed to herself and said a longer word that Jiwan guessed meant person or being. When she pointed to him and said a different word, he realized she was telling him what her people called humans. But the most important moment came when Nari pointed to her chest, then to Jiwan's chest, and said a word that seemed to have many meanings. From the way she said it, Jiwan thought it might mean trust, or friend, or maybe someone who helps. He repeated the word back to her, and she smiled for the first time since waking up. As the days passed, their communication improved. Nari was a fast learner, and soon she could speak simple sentences in Korean. Gyuan discovered that she was not just intelligent, but also curious about everything. She asked questions about human culture, about the mountains outside, about why he had decided to help her. "My people," Nari said one evening, struggling with the unfamiliar words, "they say humans are dangerous. They say humans fight and take and destroy." Gyuan nodded. "Some humans do those things, but not all of us. Some of us believe in helping. Others, even when it's difficult." "Why help me?" Nari asked. "I'm not human. I'm stranger." Gyuan thought about the question for a long time. "Because you needed help," he said finally. "And because my grandmother taught me that when someone needs help, you help them. Doesn't matter who they are or where they come from." Nari was quiet for a while, thinking about his words. Then she said, "Your grandmother was wise. But what happens to you for helping me? Your people will be angry." Maybe Jiwan admitted, "But that's my problem to worry about. Right now, the important thing is getting you healthy again." Nari reached out and gently touched his hand. Her skin was warm now, and that strange tingling sensation was back. "Thank you," she said in perfect Korean. "I understand now why some humans are different. You have something my people call heart fire. It means you do what is right even when it is hard." Giwan smiled. "Heart fire. I like that." Outside the research station, the first snow of winter began to fall. But inside, two beings from different worlds were learning that understanding and friendship could grow even in the strangest circumstances. The foundation of trust was being built, one word at a time. 2 weeks had passed since Nari first opened her eyes in the research station. The small building had become their world, hidden away from everything else. Juan had taken leave from his military duties, telling his commanding officers that he needed time to deal with a family emergency. It was not exactly a lie, he thought. Nari was becoming like family to him. Every day brought new discoveries. Nari was healing faster than Guan had expected, and her wing was starting to move properly again. Strange glow under her skin had returned to its full brightness. She could walk around the station without getting tired. But the most amazing thing was how quickly she learned. Nari could now speak Korean almost as well as a native speaker. She had also taught Juan many words in her own language, which she called Lumina. Her people were called the Lumina too, she explained, because they carried light within their bodies. Our peaceful people, Nari told Jiwon one morning as they sat by the window watching the snowfall. We live for many hundreds of years, much longer than humans. We think carefully about everything before we act. Sometimes we think too much and act too little. Guan nodded. And what were you doing when your ship crashed? Were you traveling somewhere? Adi's expression became sad. I was doing research. I study other species, other cultures. I wanted to prove to my people that not all alien races are dangerous. Many of my people believe that leaving our home world only brings trouble. Oh, but you didn't believe that. No, I thought that understanding others would make us stronger, not weaker. But my ship had problems with the engine, and I crashed before I could complete my mission. She looked at Giwan with those color-changing eyes. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it is too dangerous to trust strangers. You trusted me, Juan pointed out. Yes, and you saved my life. But you are different from other humans I have heard about. Juan was curious about this. What have you heard about humans? Nari was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. The stories say that humans are warriors who never give up fighting. They say you are loud and aggressive, and you solve every problem with violence. Some species fear humans because you expand so quickly across the galaxy. And what do you think now? I think the stories are only partly true. You are a warrior, yes. But you fight to protect, not to destroy. And you never give up. That part is definitely true. Guan laughed. What makes you say that? Because of what you did for my wing. Any other person would have given up when they saw how badly it was damaged. But you kept trying different things until you found something that worked, even when you had no idea what you were doing. That was true. Giwan had spent days studying Nera's injury, trying to understand how her body worked. Her wing was not just for flying like he had first thought. It was connected to her breathing and her circulation. When it was damaged, her whole body suffered. The breakthrough had come when Jiwan realized that Nera's people probably had different medical technology than humans. So he had taken apart some of the old equipment in the research station and built a device that would help her wing heal faster. It was not pretty, but it worked. I just did what needed to be done, Juan said. That is exactly what I mean. Humans do what needs to be done, even when it seems impossible. My people would have spent months planning and discussing. You just started building. As the days passed, Giwan and Nari spent more time talking about their different worlds and cultures. Nari told him about her home planet, where crystal cities grew from the ground like trees, and where her people communicated as much through light patterns on their skin as through words. She described vast libraries that contained the knowledge of thousands of years, gardens where plants sang in harmony with the wind. Giwan told her about Earth, about the busy cities and the wild places that still existed in the mountains and forests. He talked about human music and art, about how humans loved to explore and discover new things. He explained how humans had reached the stars not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they refused to accept that anything was impossible. We have a saying, Giwan told her, where there's a will, there's a way. It means that if you want something badly enough, you can find a way to make it happen. I like that saying, Nari said. My people have a different saying. We say patience brings wisdom, and wisdom brings peace. But sometimes I think too much patience can prevent action. Maybe we need both, Jiwan suggested. Your people's wisdom and human determination. One evening, as they sat together reading books that Jiwan had brought from town, Nari suddenly looked up at him with a serious expression. Jiwon, I need to tell you something important. My people have abilities that yours do not. We can share thoughts and feelings directly from one mind to another. I have been trying not to use this ability with you because I thought it might frighten you. Jiwon set down his book. You can read my mind. Not exactly read. It is more like feeling what you feel. I can share my own thoughts and feelings with you, if you allow it. It is how my people truly communicate with each other. Is that why I sometimes feel a tingling sensation when you touch me? Nari nodded. Yes, that is my mind trying to connect with yours. I have been fighting it because I did not want to violate your privacy, but I think I want to share this with you, if you are willing. Kwon thought about this. The idea of someone else being able to feel his thoughts was strange and a little scary, but he trusted Nari completely now, and he was curious about what it would be like to truly understand another person's mind. What would happen if you did share your thoughts with me? You would feel what I feel. You would understand not just my words, but my emotions behind them. I would understand yours. It is the deepest form of communication my people know. Jiwon looked into her eyes, which were now glowing with a soft blue light. I trust you, Nari, if you want to share this. With me, I'm willing to try. Nari smiled and reached out to take his hand. Close your eyes and try to keep your mind open. Jiwon closed his eyes and felt Nari's warm hand in his. The tingling sensation grew stronger, and then suddenly he could feel something incredible. He could sense Nari's emotions as if they were his own. He felt her gratitude for his help, her amazement at his kindness, and something else that made his heart race. She cared for him, not just as a friend or a rescuer, but as something more. And through their connection, she could feel that he cared for her the same way. When they opened their eyes, they were both smiling. This is amazing, Jiwon said softly. Yes, Nari agreed. Oh, you understand why my people value this connection so much. It is impossible to lie or hide when minds are joined this way. And what do you feel from me? Jiwon asked. I feel your strength, your determination to protect others even when it costs you. I feel your curiosity about the world and your desire to understand, and I feel... She paused, blushing slightly. I feel that you care for me as much as I care for you. Jiwon squeezed her hand gently. Is that wrong? I mean, we're from different species, different worlds. I do not think caring for someone can ever be wrong, Nari said. My people believe that connections between minds are sacred, no matter where those minds come from. Outside, the winter wind howled through the mountains, but inside the research station, two hearts from different worlds had found a way to beat as one. The understanding between them was growing into something deeper, something that neither of them had expected when their paths first crossed. But they both knew that this peaceful time could not last forever. Soon, the outside world would intrude on their hidden sanctuary, and they would have to face the consequences of their choices. For now, though, they had each other, and that was enough. The peaceful days at the research station were coming to an end, though Jiwon and Nari did not know it yet. 3 weeks had passed since the crash. Their hidden world was about to be discovered by forces that had been searching for them. Major Min-ho Kim sat in his office at the military base, staring at reports that troubled him greatly. Lieutenant Jiwon Park had been missing from duty for over 2 weeks, claiming a family emergency. But Min-ho had checked, and there was no family emergency. Jiwon's grandmother was fine, his parents were healthy, and his sister was working normally. At her job in Seoul, more importantly, the satellite images from the crash site showed something strange. The wreckage of the alien ship had been completely destroyed, but there were human footprints leading away from the crater. Someone had been there before the recovery team arrived. That someone had taken something from the crash. Min-ho had been Jiwon's friend for many years. Even before they joined the military together, he knew that Jiwon was honest and brave, but also that he sometimes let his heart make decisions instead of his head. If Jiwon had found something at that crash site, he might have done something very foolish. "Sir," said Sergeant Lee, entering the office with a new report. "We've been tracking Lieutenant Park's movements before he went on leave. His credit cards show purchases of medical supplies, food, and camping equipment in the mountain region near the crash site. Minho rubbed his temples. This was getting worse. Any idea where he might be hiding? We found records of an old research station in that area. It was abandoned 5 years ago, but it still has power and basic facilities. It would be a good place to hide if someone wanted to stay off the grid. Get a team ready, Minho ordered. We're going to have a conversation with Lieutenant Park. Meanwhile, in space above the planet, another hunter was preparing for his own search. Captain Sunho commanded a Corvan warship, and he had been tracking the stolen Lumina vessel for weeks. The Corvans were a warrior race that made their living by capturing and selling other species as slaves. The Lumina were especially valuable because of their telepathic abilities. Sunho studied the crash site data on his screens. The ship had been destroyed, but there were no Lumina remains found in the wreckage. That meant his prey was still alive, probably hiding somewhere on the planet's surface. "Sir," reported his lieutenant, "we have detected human military activity. Near the crash site, they seem to be searching for something." Sunho smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Excellent. The humans probably found our little Lumina friend. We'll let them do the work of finding her, then we'll take her from them. Should we contact the humans? They might be willing to trade." "No," Sunho said firmly. "Humans are unpredictable. Sometimes refuse to cooperate, even when it would benefit them. We'll handle this ourselves." Back at the research station, Ji-Wan was starting to feel worried. He had been making trips to town for supplies, and each time he went, he noticed more military vehicles on the roads. Something was happening, and he had a bad feeling that it was connected to him. "Nari," he said as he returned from his latest supply run, "I think we might have a problem." Nari looked up from the book she was reading. She had been teaching herself about human history. She was fascinated by the stories of human exploration and discovery. "What kind of problem?" "I saw military patrols near the main road, more than usual. And when I was in town, I heard some people talking about increased security in the mountains. Out!" Through their mental connection, Nari could feel Giwan's worry. It made her own heart beat faster. "You think they are looking for us? I think they might be looking for me. I've been away from my duties for too long, and my commanding officer is probably getting suspicious." Nari stood up and walked to the window. Her wing was completely healed now, and she moved with the natural grace of her people. "Maybe it is time for me to leave. I am strong enough to travel now, and I do not want to cause trouble for you." "Where would you go?" Ji-Wan asked. "Your ship is destroyed, and you have no way to contact your people. I will find a way. I always knew this day would come." Ji-Wan felt a sharp pain in his chest at the thought of losing her. Over the past weeks, Nari had become the most important person in his life. The idea of her leaving made him feel empty. "No," he said firmly. "We'll find another solution. Maybe I can talk to my commanding officer, explain the situation, and tell him what? That you have been hiding an alien for weeks? That you disobeyed orders and saved someone from a crash?" Nari shook her head. "Your people will want to study me, question me, keep me locked away. You will be punished for helping me. Then we'll run away together. We'll find somewhere else to hide." Nari smiled sadly and touched his face. "You would give up your entire life for me? Your career? Your family? Your world?" "If I have to, yes." The next morning, their decision was made for them. Giwan was checking the security cameras he had set up around the station when he saw vehicles approaching through the trees. Military vehicles, moving slowly and carefully up the mountain road. "Nari, we have company," he called out. She joined him at the monitor and saw the approaching convoy. "How many?" "Looks like 6 vehicles, probably 30 soldiers." "My commanding officer is not taking any chances. Can we escape?" Ji-Wan considered their options. The station had a back exit that led into the forest, but the soldiers would probably have the area surrounded. And even if they got away, where could they go? The entire planet was human territory. "We could try," he said. "But they know these mountains as well as I do. They would find us eventually." "Then what do we do?" Ji-Wan made a decision that surprised even himself. "We fight. Fight. Against 30 soldiers. Ji-Wan, that is suicide. Not if we're smart about it. I know this terrain better than anyone. You have abilities that they don't expect. If we work together, we might have a chance." Nari felt his determination through their mental link. It was like a fire burning in his mind, refusing to be put out. This was what her people had heard about humans. This refusal to give up even when facing impossible odds. You really think we can win against so many? I think we can try. And that's what humans do best. Try. Even when everyone says we can't. Succeed. As the military vehicles got closer, Jiwan and Nari prepared for the fight of their lives. They gathered weapons and supplies, set up defensive positions, and planned their strategy. Jiwan's military training helped him think tactically, while Nari's telepathic abilities allowed her to coordinate their movements perfectly. But even as they prepared, both of them knew that this was just the beginning. The human military was only the first threat they would face. Somewhere in space, the Corvin hunters were also closing in, and they would be much more dangerous than any human soldiers. The peaceful sanctuary they had built together was about to become a battlefield, and the real test of their bond was just beginning. Through the window, they could see the soldiers getting out of their vehicles and taking positions around the station. Major Minho was among them, and he was calling out through a megaphone. "Guwon, I know you're in there. Come out and we can talk about this. You're not in trouble yet, but you will be if you don't cooperate." Giwan looked at Nari, who nodded with determination. They had made their choice. "Sorry, Minho," Jiwan whispered, "but I can't let you take her." The hunt was about to begin, and the hunters were about to discover that sometimes the prey fights back. The first shots came from the forest. Not from the soldiers surrounding the research station. G1 was watching through the window. When bright energy beams cut through the trees and struck two of the military vehicles, the explosions knocked several soldiers to the ground and sent Major Minho diving for cover behind a rock. "What was that?" Nari asked, feeling Jawan's confusion through their mental link. "I don't know." Those weren't human weapons. Through the smoke and chaos, dark figures moved between the trees. They were tall and heavily armored, carrying weapons that hummed with alien energy. The Corvin hunters had arrived. They were not interested in talking. Captain Sunho stepped out of the forest with 12 of his best warriors. He had been watching the humans for an hour, waiting for the right moment to strike. Now the pathetic human soldiers were trapped between his forces and the research station. "Humans," Sunho called out in accented but clear Korean, "you have something that belongs to us. Give us the Lumina female, and you may leave with your lives." Major Minho raised his head from behind cover. "Who are you? This is Earth's territory. You have no authority here." Sunho laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the mountains. "Authority comes from strength, human, and we are stronger than you." To prove his point, Sunho gestured to one of his warriors, who fired an energy beam that completely destroyed one of the remaining military vehicles. The humans scrambled for better cover, but they were clearly outgunned. Inside the research station, Jiwan was making rapid calculations. The Corvin weapons were more advanced than anything the human soldiers carried. If this turned into a straight fight, the humans would lose quickly, but that might actually work in his favor. "Nari, do you know who those aliens are?" "The Corvins," she said, her face pale with fear. "They are slavers and hunters. They must have been tracking my ship. What do they want with you?" "My people's telepathic abilities are valuable to them. They capture Lumina and force us to work for them, reading minds and controlling other slaves." Guan felt anger burning in his chest. The idea of anyone hurting Nari or forcing her to do anything made him want to fight, regardless of the odds. "That's not going to happen," he said firmly. Outside, the battle was already starting. Major Minho's soldiers were brave and well-trained, but their weapons barely scratched the Corvin armor. The aliens advanced steadily, using their superior firepower to drive the humans back. Sunho was enjoying himself. Humans always fought hard, but they were no match for Corvin technology. Soon he would have the Lumina female, and his profit from this hunt would be enormous. But then something unexpected happened. Guan appeared at the back of the research station, moving carefully through the trees. He was not running away from the fight. Instead, he was moving toward it, using the forest for cover. Nari was with him, staying close and using her telepathic abilities to help him avoid the Corvan patrols. She could sense the alien minds and guide Jiwan around them. "What are you doing?" she whispered. We should be running away from here. I'm not leaving those soldiers to die, Jiwan replied. They came here because of me. And besides, running won't solve our problem. The Corvins will just follow us wherever we go. But there are too many of them. Even with your soldiers helping, we cannot win. Guan smiled grimly. Maybe not in a straight fight, but humans don't always fight fair. He led Nari to a position high on the mountainside where they could see the entire battle. The Corvins had pushed the human soldiers back to a small area near the road. Major Minho and his men were trapped, running low on ammunition, and the aliens were closing in for the final attack. Nari, can you use your telepathic abilities to distract the Corvins? Just for a few seconds? I can try. But their minds are very different from human minds. It will be difficult and painful for me. I know it's dangerous. But I have an idea. That might save everyone. Nari looked into his eyes and saw the plan forming in his mind through their connection. It was crazy and dangerous, but it might actually work. You are definitely the most stubborn human I have ever met, she said. But I trust you. Jiwan positioned himself on a ledge overlooking the battle while Nari prepared to use her abilities. Below them, Captain Sunho was ordering his warriors to finish off the remaining humans. Now, Jiwan whispered. Nara closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, touching the thoughts of the Corvin warriors. Their minds were harsh and violent, full of anger and cruelty. It hurt to connect with them, but she forced herself to create confusion and doubt in their thoughts. For just a moment, the Corvins hesitated, unsure of what they were seeing and hearing. That moment was all Jiwan needed. He had noticed something. During his observation of the battle, the mountainside above the Corvins was unstable, with loose rocks and snow held in place by just a few key supports. It was the kind of natural weakness that a trained soldier could exploit. G1 opened fire with his rifle, but not at the aliens. Instead, he aimed at the rocky outcrop above them. His shots were precise and calculated, hitting exactly the right spots to trigger what he wanted. The mountainside came down in a roaring avalanche of rock and snow. 3 of the Corvon warriors were caught directly in the landslide and crushed instantly. The others were scattered and disoriented, their formation broken. Captain Sunho found himself separated from most of his men, trapped between falling rocks and angry human soldiers. Major Minho saw his chance and led his men in a desperate charge. The Corvons were still more dangerous individually, but they had lost their advantage of superior numbers and position. The battle that followed was fierce and chaotic. Human determination clashed with alien technology in the smoke and dust of the avalanche. Soldiers fell on both sides, but gradually the humans began to gain the upper hand. Captain Sunho realized that his easy hunt had become a real fight. These humans were more resourceful than he had expected. And somewhere in the mountains above, someone was helping them with tactics that seemed almost impossible. Fall back, he ordered his remaining warriors. Regroup at the ship. But as the Corvins tried to retreat, they found their path blocked. Giwan had used his knowledge of the mountain terrain to predict their escape route, and he was waiting for them. The final confrontation came at a narrow pass between 2 cliff faces. Sunho and 4 of his warriors faced Jiwan and Nari with no room to maneuver and no way to escape. You have caused me considerable trouble, human, Sunho snarled. But this ends now. You're right, Guan replied calmly. It does end now. Sunho raised his energy weapon, confident that his superior firepower would end this quickly. But he had underestimated 2 things: human stubbornness and the power of 2 minds working as one. As Sunho fired, Nari used her telepathic abilities to connect completely with Jiwan's mind. For the first time, they fought as a single being with 2 bodies. Guwan's tactical skills, combined with Nara's ability to sense the aliens' intentions, created something that neither species had ever experienced before. They moved like dancers, anticipating each other's actions perfectly. When Jiwan dove left, Nari was already moving right to flank their enemies. When she sensed an attack coming, he was ready to counter it before the aliens even acted. The Corvin warriors, for all their training and technology, had never faced Anything like this? We're fighting not just two individuals, but a perfectly coordinated team that seemed to know their every move before they made it. One by one, the aliens fell. Sun Ho watched his warriors defeated by opponents who should have been easy prey. Finally, only he remained, facing two beings who had somehow become more than the sum of their parts. "This is impossible," he growled. "Humans cannot fight like this." "You're wrong," Jiwan said. "Humans can do anything when we have something worth fighting for." The final battle was brief. Sun Ho was skilled and dangerous, but he was facing something beyond his understanding. The combination of human determination and Lumina telepathy created a fighting force that was greater than either species could achieve alone. When it was over, Captain Sun Ho lay defeated among the rocks, and the mountain pass was silent, except for the wind. G1 and Nari stood together, breathing hard but victorious. Through their mental connection, they shared not just the triumph of winning, but the deeper realization of what they had become together. They were no longer just a human, and an alien who cared for each other. They had become something new, something that combined the best qualities of both their species, but their victory had come at a cost. Below them, Major Minho and his soldiers were approaching, and there would be questions that could not be avoided. Battle was won, but the war for their future was just beginning. Major Minho climbed the mountain path slowly, his uniform torn and dirty from the battle. Half of his soldiers were wounded, but they were all alive thanks to the mysterious help they had received during the fight. Now he was going to meet the person responsible for both saving their lives and causing all this trouble. When he reached the narrow pass, he found Lieutenant Jiwan Park sitting on a rock beside a young woman who was clearly not human. She had pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly in the afternoon light, and strange wing-like structures folded against her back. But what struck Minho most was how peaceful they looked together, despite having just survived a deadly battle. "That's," Minho said quietly. "We need to talk." Jiwan stood up, keeping himself between Minho and Nari. "I know what you're thinking, Minho, but before you say anything, let me explain." "Explain what? That you've been hiding an alien for weeks? That you disobeyed direct orders? That you started an international incident with some kind of space?" "Pirates. I saved someone who needed help," Guan said simply. "Just like you would have done." Minho looked at Nari, who was watching him with those strange, color-changing eyes. She seemed calm but alert, ready to run or fight if necessary. "She's the one who helped us during the battle, isn't she?" Minho asked. "His tactics were too good for one person alone." "We helped each other," Nari said, speaking in perfect Korean. "Your friend has a gift for strategy, and I was able to sense what our enemies were planning. Together, we were stronger than either of us could be alone." Sat down heavily on another rock. As a military officer, he should arrest both of them and turn Nari over to the government scientists. But as a friend, he could see that something remarkable had happened here. "Do you realize what kind of problems this is going to cause?" He asked Jawan. "The military will want to study her. The politicians will want to use her as a diplomatic tool. The scientists will want to understand how her abilities work." "I know," Jiwan replied. "But I also know that none of those people care about Nari as a person. They just see her as something useful." "And what do you see her as?" Guan looked at Nari, and she smiled back at him. Through their mental connection, they shared a moment of perfect understanding. "I see her as the person I want to spend my life with," Guan said. Minho raised his eyebrows. "You're in love with her?" "Yes." "And she loves me too." "This is complicated, Jiwan. Humans and aliens don't just fall in love and live happily ever after. There are laws, regulations, protocols. And maybe it's time to change some of those laws," said a new voice. General Hyok Nam emerged from behind the soldiers. Having climbed the mountain despite his age and rank, was the most senior military officer in the region, and his word carried enormous weight. Everyone stood up quickly and saluted, but the general waved them back down. "I've been listening to your conversation," General Nam said, "and I've been thinking about what happened here today. Lieutenant Park, you disobeyed orders and created a significant security risk." "Yes, sir," Giwan replied, ready to accept whatever punishment was coming. "But you also saved the life of a peaceful alien researcher, prevented an interstellar incident with her people." and helped us defeat a group of dangerous slavers who were operating in our territory. The general looked at Nari thoughtfully. And you, young lady, could have escaped during the battle and left our soldiers to die. But instead, you chose to help them, even though they were here to capture you.
I could not let innocent people
Die because of me, Nari said. Jiwan taught me that helping others is always the right choice, no matter how difficult it might be. General Nam smiled. I think I'm beginning to understand why you two work so well together. You both have the same values, despite coming from different worlds. Sir, Major Minho interrupted, what are your orders regarding this situation? The general was quiet for a long moment, considering his options. Finally, he spoke. This is bigger than a military matter now. What happened here today proves that humans and aliens can work together successfully. Lieutenant Park and his friend have shown us something new, something that could change how we interact with other species. He looked directly at Jiwan and Nari. I'm recommending that you both be assigned to a new diplomatic program. We need people who understand that cooperation is stronger than conflict. What kind of program? Jiwan asked. Cultural Exchange Initiative. We'll work with Nari's people to establish formal relations between our species, and you two will be our first ambassadors, proving that understanding between different peoples is possible. Nari felt hope growing in her chest. You would accept me as a representative of my people? After what I've seen today, I think we'd be fools not to. You've already proven that humans and Lumina can achieve incredible things when we work together. 6 months later, Yuan and Nari stood together in a beautiful garden on the grounds of the new Interspecies Cooperation Center. Representatives from both Earth and the Lumina homeworld had gathered to witness something that had never happened before in galactic history. The wedding ceremony combined traditions from both cultures. Guan wore a traditional Korean wedding outfit, while Nari's dress was made from fabric that seemed to contain captured starlight. When they exchanged vows, Nari used her telepathic abilities to share her emotions with everyone present, human and Lumina alike. I promise to love you across all the distances between stars, Guan said as he took her hands. And I promise to love you with all the light in my soul. Nari replied, her skin glowing brighter with happiness. When they kissed, the Lumina guests created a display of bioluminescent patterns that painted the garden in colors that humans had never seen before. The human guests responded with cheers and applause that echoed across the mountains. General Nam, now Director of Interspecies Relations, stood up to address the crowd. Today we celebrate not just the marriage of two remarkable individuals, but the beginning of a new era of cooperation between our peoples. Now, Lieutenant Park and Ambassador Nari have shown us that love, understanding, and determination can overcome any obstacle. He raised his glass in a toast. To Giwan and Nari, and to the future they represent. May their partnership inspire both our species to reach for the stars together. As the celebration continued around them, Jaewon and Nari stepped away from the crowd for a moment of privacy. They stood together looking up at the night sky, where the lights of both human and Lumina ships could be seen traveling between the stars. Do you ever regret it? Jaewon asked. Staying here instead of going home to your people? Nari smiled and took his hand. Through their mental connection, she shared her feelings of complete contentment and joy. Home is not a place, she said. Home is where the people you love are waiting for you. And my home is right here with you. Even though I'm just a stubborn human who doesn't know when to give up, especially because you're a stubborn human who doesn't know when to give up, that stubbornness saved my life, and it saved the lives of many others. They stood together in comfortable silence, two beings from different worlds who had found something precious in each other. Round them, humans and Lumina mingled freely, learning from each other and building friendships that would last for generations. The story that had begun with a simple act of compassion had grown into something much larger. Guan's refusal to abandon someone in need had not only saved Nera's life, but it opened the door to a new era of cooperation between species, and in the years that followed, their love story would be told throughout the galaxy as proof that understanding and determination could overcome any difference, no matter how vast the distance between worlds. The rescue had become a romance, and the romance had become a bridge between the stars. In the end, the greatest human strength was not the ability to fight or conquer, but the willingness to reach out and help others, even when they seemed completely different. It was a lesson that would change the galaxy forever, one act of kindness at a time.